The singing bone. In an ancient land where forests grew deep and the fields were wide, a terror arose that filled every heart with dread. From the shadowed woods there came forth a monstrous wild boar, black of hide and fierce of eye, whose tusks were cruel as sharpened scythes. It laid waste to the tilled earth, rooting up the farmers' fields as though they were nothing but moss and dust. It gored the cattle, leaving them torn and dying in the meadows. And even men were not spared, for it ripped open their bodies as easily as a huntsman splits a hare. Great lamentation rose in every village, and mothers clutched their children closer at the sound of a rustle in the underbrush, fearing the beast might come raging from the forest at any moment. The king of that land, heavy with sorrow for his people, proclaimed a reward such as none had ever heard before. Whoever should rid the realm of this scourge, be it through cunning capture or by the shedding of its blood, would not only earn gold and honor, but would be given the hand of his only daughter, the princess, fairest among women. Yet so great was the boar's strength, and so dire its fury, that none dared set foot near the forest's edge. Brave men grew pale at the thought, and seasoned hunters shook their heads in silence. Now, in that same country, lived two brothers, sons of a poor and humble man. Though their home was meager and their lot in life hard, their spirits were very different. The elder was clever and shrewd, sharp of tongue and proud at heart. He thought himself wiser than all others, though little kindness dwelt within him. The younger was simple and guileless, his heart open as the sky after rain. He sought no greatness for himself, but wished only to do good wherever he might. When the king's proclamation was heard, both brothers stepped forth, declaring that they would undertake the perilous hunt. The king, looking upon them, said, "That you may have greater chance of finding the beast, you shall not go together, but each shall enter the forest from a different side. Thus the boar, fleeing from one, may be met by the other." So it was decided. The elder brother strode into the forest from the west, his thoughts filled with pride and the reward that would soon be his. The younger entered from the east, his steps guided more by faith than by hope. Not far had the younger gone into the dim wood when a little man appeared before him, small as a child, but old in face, with eyes bright as coals. In his hand he bore a spear, black from tip to shaft, as though forged in midnight itself. The little man said, "Because your heart is pure and without malice, I give you this spear. Fear not the beast, for with this weapon you may meet it boldly. No harm shall befall you." The youth bowed low, thanked the mysterious giver, and set the spear upon his shoulder. With new courage, he pressed onward, unafraid of the dark forest around him. Before long, he heard a crashing in the thicket, and the monstrous boar burst forth, bristling with rage, its tusks dripping with foam. With a roar, it rushed at him, earth flying beneath its hooves. Yet the youth stood firm, braced the spear, and pointed it straight at the beast's chest. In its blind fury, the boar charged full upon the weapon, and with such swiftness that the spear pierced its heart, cleaving it in two. With a final shriek, the beast fell dead at his feet. The youth, strong though weary, lifted the monstrous carcass upon his back, and with steady step carried it out of the forest toward the king's hall. But fate, ever watchful, had laid a darker path before him, for at the far edge of the wood stood a house where laughter, music, and the clink of wine cups filled the air. Here, his elder brother had tarried. He had not sought the beast, but had sat himself among the drinkers, thinking that courage might be found in the bottom of a cup. Yet when he beheld his younger brother emerging from the forest with the boar upon his shoulders, envy burned within him hotter than any fire. "Brother," he cried with false cheer, "come in, rest yourself, and drink a cup of wine, for surely you are weary." The younger, knowing no guile, entered gladly, and told his tale of the little man who had given him the black spear, and of the victory he had won. The elder listened with eyes dark and heavy, but his heart was filled not with joy, but with malice. He kept his brother there until nightfall, pouring him wine and speaking honeyed words. When at last they set out together, the stars shone cold above, and the road led them to a bridge over a swift brook. The elder, feigning courtesy, bade the younger go first. And when he was halfway across, the elder struck him from behind with a cruel blow. The youth cried out once, then fell into the water, lifeless. The elder dragged the body beneath the bridge, buried it in the sand, and with wicked haste seized the boar. Thus he came before the king, boasting that he alone had slain the beast, and in reward he was given the hand of the princess, as had been promised. And when men asked after his brother, he said smoothly, "The boar, alas, slew him in the forest," and none doubted his word. Yet no sin lies forever hidden. The years passed, and one day a shepherd led his flock across the same bridge. Looking down, he saw in the sand below a small bone, white as snow. Thinking it would serve as a fitting mouthpiece for his horn, he climbed down, took it up, and shaped it with his knife. But when he blew upon the horn, the bone itself began to sing, clear and sorrowful. Ah, friend, thou blowest upon my bone. Long have I lain always beside the water. My brother slew me for the boar, and took for his wife the king's young daughter. The shepherd marveled, saying, This is no common horn, for it sings with its own voice. I must bring it before my lord, the king. So he came to the palace, and again, when he blew, the horn sang the same mournful song. The king, hearing, grew grave and commanded that the earth beneath the bridge be dug up. There they found the whole skeleton of the murdered youth, his bones gleaming pale in the daylight. The truth could no longer be hidden. The elder brother, when questioned, could not deny his crime. Judgment was swift and harsh. He was sewn into a sack and cast into the river, where he was drowned as he had drowned his brother. But the bones of the younger were gathered with reverence and laid in a fair tomb within the churchyard, where bells tolled in mourning. And though his life was cruelly cut short, men remembered him as the true hero who had slain the boar, and whose pure heart had won a gift from the hand of fate itself. The devil with the 3 golden hairs. There was once a poor woman who gave birth to a little son, and as he came into the world with a call on, it was predicted that in his 14th year he would have the king's daughter for his wife. It happened that soon afterwards the king came into the village, and no one knew that he was the king. And when he asked the people what news there was, they answered, "A child has just been born with a call on. Whatever anyone so born undertakes turns out well. It is prophesied, too, that in his 14th year he will have the king's daughter for his wife." The king, who had a bad heart and was angry about the prophecy, went to the parents and, seeming quite friendly, said, "You poor people, let me have your child, and I will take care of it." At first they refused, but when the stranger offered them a large amount of gold for it, and they thought, "It is a luck child, and everything must turn out well for it," they at last consented and gave him the child. The king put it in a box and rode away with it until he came to a deep piece of water. Then he threw the box into it and thought, "I have freed my daughter from her unlooked-for suitor." The box, however, did not sink, but floated like a boat, and not a drop of water made its way into it. And it floated to within 2 miles of the king's chief city, where there was a mill. And it came to a standstill at the mill dam. A miller's boy, who by good luck was standing there, noticed it and pulled it out with a hook, thinking, that he had found a great treasure. But when he opened it, there lay a pretty boy inside, quite fresh and lively. He took him to the miller and his wife, and as they had no children, they were glad, and said, "God has given him to us." They took great care of the foundling, and he grew up in all goodness. It happened that once in a storm, the king went into the mill, and he asked the mill folk if the tall youth was their son. "No," answered they, "he's a foundling. 14 years ago, he floated down to the mill dam in a box, and the mill boy pulled him out of the water. Then the king knew that it was none other than the luck child, which he had thrown into the water. And he said, 'My good people, could not the youth take a letter to the queen? I will give him 2 gold pieces as a reward.' 'Just as the king commands,' answered they. And they told the boy to hold himself in readiness. Then the king wrote a letter to the queen, wherein he said, 'As soon as the boy arrives with this letter, let him be killed and buried, and all must be done before I come home.' The boy set out with this letter, but he lost his way, and in the evening came to a large forest. In the darkness, he saw a small light. He went towards it and reached a cottage. When he went in, an old woman was sitting by the fire quite alone. She started when she saw the boy and said, 'Whence do you come, and whither are you going?' 'I come from the mill,' he answered, 'and wish to go to the queen, to whom I am taking a letter. But as I have lost my way in the forest, I should like to stay here overnight.' 'You poor boy,' said the woman, 'you have come into a den of thieves, and when they come home, they will kill you.' 'Let them come,' said the boy. 'I am not afraid, but I am so tired that I cannot go any farther.' And he stretched himself upon a bench and fell asleep. Soon afterwards, the robbers came and angrily asked what strange boy was lying there. 'Ah,' said the old woman, 'it is an innocent child who has lost himself in the forest, and out of pity I have let him come in. He has to take a letter to the queen.' The robbers opened the letter and read it, and in it was written that the boy, as soon as he arrived, should be put to death. Then the hard-hearted robbers felt pity, and their leader tore up the letter and wrote another, saying that as soon as the boy came, he should be married at once to the king's daughter. Then they let him lie quietly on the bench until the next morning, and when he awoke, they gave him the letter and showed him the right way. And the queen, when she had received the letter and read it, did as was written in it, and had a splendid wedding feast prepared. And the king's daughter was married to the luck child, and as the youth was handsome and agreeable. She lived with him in joy and contentment. After some time, the king returned to his palace and saw that the prophecy was fulfilled, and the luck child married to his daughter. "How has that come to pass?" said he. "I gave quite another order in my letter." So the queen gave him the letter and said that he might see for himself what was written in it. The king read the letter and saw quite well that it had been exchanged for the other. He asked the youth what had become of the letter entrusted to him, and why he had brought another instead of it. "I know nothing about it," answered he. "It must have been changed in the night, when I slept in the forest." The king said in a passion, "You shall not have everything quite so much your own way. Whosoever marries my daughter must fetch me from hell 3 golden hairs from the head of the devil. Bring me what I want, and you shall keep my daughter." In this way, the king hoped to be rid of him forever. But the luck child answered, "I will fetch the golden hairs. I am not afraid of the devil." Thereupon he took leave of them and began his journey. The road led him to a large town, where the watchman by the gates asked him what his trade was and what he knew. "I know everything," answered the luck child. "Then you can do us a favor," said the watchman, "if you will tell us why our market fountain, which once flowed with wine, has become dry and no longer gives even water." "That you shall know," answered he. "Only wait until I come back." Then he went farther and came to another town, and there also the gatekeeper asked him what was his trade and what he knew. "I know everything," answered he. "Then you can do us a favor and tell us why a tree in our town, which once bore golden apples, now does not even put forth leaves." "You shall know that," answered he. "Only wait until I come back." Then he went on and came to a wide river over which he must go. The ferryman asked him what his trade was and what he knew. "I know everything," answered he. "Then you can do me a favor," said the ferryman, "and tell me why I must always be rowing backwards and forwards and am never set free." "You shall know that," answered he. "Only wait until I come back." When he had crossed the water, he found the entrance to hell. It was black and sooty within, and the devil was not at home, but his grandmother was sitting in a large armchair. "What do you want?" said she to him, but she did not look so very wicked. "I should like to have 3 golden hairs from the devil's head," answered he. "Else I cannot keep my wife." "That is a good deal to ask for," said she. "If the devil comes home and finds you, it will cost you your life. But as I pity you, I will see if I cannot help you." She changed him into an ant and said, "Creep into the folds of my dress." you will be safe there." "Yes," answered he. "So far, so good. But there are 3 things besides that I want to know. Why a fountain which once flowed with wine has become dry, and no longer gives even water? Why a tree which once bore golden apples does not even put forth leaves? And why a ferryman must always be going backwards and forwards, and is never set free?" "Those are difficult questions," answered she. "But only be silent and quiet, and pay attention to what the devil says when I pull out the 3 golden hairs." As the evening came on, the devil returned home. No sooner had he entered than he noticed that the air was not pure. "I smell man's flesh," said he. "All is not right here." Then he pried into every corner and searched, but could not find anything. His grandmother scolded him. "It has just been swept," said she, "and everything put in order. And now you are upsetting it again. You have always got man's flesh in your nose. Sit down and eat your supper." When he had eaten and drunk, he was tired, and laid his head in his grandmother's lap, and before long he was fast asleep, snoring and breathing heavily. Then the old woman took hold of a golden hair, pulled it out, and laid it down near her. "Oh," cried the devil, "what are you doing?" "I have had a bad dream," answered the grandmother. "So I seized hold of your hair." "What did you dream then?" said the devil. "I dreamed that a fountain in a marketplace from which wine once flowed was dried up, and not even water would flow out of it. What is the cause of it?" "Oh, ho, if they did but know it," answered the devil. "There is a toad sitting under a stone in the well. If they killed it, the wine would flow again." He went to sleep again and snored until the windows shook. Then she pulled the second hair out. "Ha! What are you doing?" cried the devil angrily. "Do not take it ill," said she. "I did it in a dream." "What have you dreamt this time?" asked he. "I dreamt that in a certain kingdom there stood an apple tree, which had once borne golden apples, but now would not even bear leaves. What, think you, was the reason?" "Oh, if they did but know," answered the devil. "A mouse is gnawing at the root. If they killed this, they would have golden apples again. But if it gnaws much longer, the tree will wither altogether. But leave me alone with your dreams. If you disturb me in my sleep again, you will get a box on the ear." The grandmother spoke gently to him until he fell asleep again and snored. Then she took hold of the third golden hair and pulled it out. The devil jumped up, roared out, and would have treated her ill if she had not quieted him once more and said, "Who can help bad dreams?" "What was the dream, then?" asked he, and was quite curious. "I dreamt of a ferryman who complained that he must always ferry from one side to the other, and was never released. What is the cause of it? Ah, the fool, answered the devil. When anyone comes and wants to go across, he must put the oar in his hand, and the other man will have to ferry, and he will be free. As the grandmother had plucked out the 3 golden hairs, and the 3 questions were answered, she let the old serpent alone, and he slept until daybreak. When the devil had gone out again, the old woman took the ant out of the folds of her dress and gave the luck child his human shape again. "There are the 3 golden hairs for you," said she. "What the devil said to your 3 questions, I suppose you heard?" "Yes," answered he, "I heard, and will take care to remember." "You have what you want," said she, "and now you can go your way." He thanked the old woman for helping him in his need, and left hell well content that everything had turned out so fortunately. When he came to the ferryman, he was expected to give the promised answer. "Ferry me across first," said the luck child, "and then I will tell you how you can be set free." And when he reached the opposite shore, he gave him the devil's advice. "Next time anyone comes who wants to be ferried over, just put the oar in his hand." He went on and came to the town wherein stood the unfruitful tree, and there too the watchman wanted an answer. So he told him what he had heard from the devil. "Kill the mouse which is gnawing at its root, and it will again bear golden apples." Then the watchman thanked him, and gave him as a reward 2 asses laden with gold, which followed him. At last he came to the town whose well was dry. He told the watchman what the devil had said. "A toad is in the well beneath a stone. You must find it and kill it, and the well will again give wine in plenty." The watchman thanked him, and also gave him 2 asses laden with gold. At last the luck child got home to his wife, who was heartily glad to see him again, and to hear how well he had prospered in everything. To the king he took what he had asked for, the devil's 3 golden hairs, and when the king saw the 4 asses laden with gold, he was quite content, and said, "Now all the conditions are fulfilled, and you can keep my daughter. But tell me, dear son-in-law, where did all that gold come from? This is tremendous wealth." "I was rowed across a river," answered he, "and got it there. It lies on the shore instead of sand." "Can I too fetch some of it?" said the king, and he was quite eager about it. "As much as you like," answered he. "There is a ferryman on the river. Let him ferry you over, and you can fill your sacks on the other side." The greedy king set out in all haste, and when he came to the river, He beckoned to the ferryman to put him across. The ferryman came and bade him get in. And when they got to the other shore, he put the oar in his hand and sprang out. But from this time forth, the king had to ferry, as a punishment for his sins. Perhaps he is ferrying still? If he is, it is because no one has taken the oar from him. The Louse and the Flea. Once upon a time, long ago and half forgotten, there lived a little louse and a little flea. They were small as dust, yet busy as any housekeeper, and together they kept house in a crooked corner of the world. For their delight, they brewed a strong drink, a bubbling beer, inside the hollow of an eggshell. They laughed and chattered while the brew foamed, and the smell of it filled their tiny dwelling. But as the louse bent over the steaming drink, she slipped, she stumbled, and into the scalding froth she fell. The heat bit her through and burned her, and she was lost. At once the flea, who had loved her dearly, lifted his thin voice and shrieked until the rafters rang. He wept so that the whole little house trembled. Then the small door of the room creaked on its hinges and asked in its wooden voice, "Why, little flea, dost thou scream so bitterly?" "Have I not cause?" cried the flea. "The little louse has perished in the brew. The fire has claimed her, and my heart is broken." Hearing this, the little door groaned in sorrow, and it creaked and wailed upon its pin. Now in the corner, a straw broom leaned, and when it heard the door creaking, it rustled and said, "Why dost thou groan so loudly, little door? Have I not cause to groan? The louse has burned herself, the flea is weeping sore, and I must creak in grief." So the broom began to sweep madly across the floor, stirring dust in wild circles, as if sorrow itself had seized its bristles. Soon, a little cart came rattling by. Seeing the broom's frenzy, it cried, "Why sweepest thou so furiously, little broom? Have I not cause to sweep? The louse is gone, the flea is wailing, the door is creaking, and I cannot rest." "Then I will run," said the cart, and off it rolled, faster and faster, wheels shrieking as if driven by invisible hands. By the road lay a heap of ash. The cart thundered past, and the ash heap called, "Why rushest thou so wildly, little cart? Have I not cause to run? The louse is lost, the flea is mourning, the door is groaning, the broom is sweeping, and I can do no other." "Then I shall burn," said the ash heap, and it flared up bright with sudden flames, though no spark had touched it. Beside the heap stood a little tree with tender leaves. Startled, it asked, "Ash heap, why dost thou burn so fierce? Have I not cause to blaze? The louse has perished, the flea laments, the door creaks, the broom sweeps, the cart runs, and I been with grief." The tree shook in terror and sorrow until all its leaves fluttered down like rain. Now a maiden passed by with her small clay pitcher balanced upon her shoulder. She beheld the tree shedding its leaves and said, "Why tremblest thou so, little tree? Have I not cause to tremble? The louse is dead, the flea weeps, the door cries, the broom sweeps, the cart runs, the ash heap burns, and I cannot stand still." "Then I shall shatter my pitcher," said the maiden, and with both hands she dashed it upon the stones so that it broke in pieces. From the cleft earth nearby, a little spring rose up, sparkling. It spoke in its cool voice, "Why, maiden, hast thou broken thy pitcher? Have I not cause? The louse is lost, the flea is crying, the door is creaking, the broom is sweeping, the cart is running, the ash heap is burning, the tree is shaking." "Oh, ho," said the spring, "then I shall flow, and not gently, but with force." And it gushed and roared, swelling greater with every heartbeat until it tore the ground open. The waters raged and swept all before them. They drowned the maiden and her broken jug, the tree stripped bare of leaves, the blazing ash heap, the cart that ran, the broom that swept, the door that creaked, the flea that wept, and the louse who had fallen into the brew. All were caught together and carried away in the flood. And so ended the little tale. Clever Hans. Now it came to pass that the mother of Hans said unto him, "Whither away, Hans, my son?" And Hans made answer, "To Grethel will I go." Then spoke the mother with care, "See thou comport thyself becomingly, Hans." And Hans replied, "Yea, mother, I shall behave well enough. Fare thee well." "Fare thee well, Hans," said she, and let him go forth. So Hans went along the dusty lane, and when he came to Grethel, he greeted her, saying, "A good day to thee, Grethel." And Grethel answered kindly, "A good day to thee, Hans. What hast thou brought that is worthy and good?" Hans said, "Naught have I brought, but rather would I receive aught of thee." Then Grethel, being generous, gave into his hand a slender needle, sharp and fine. "Farewell, Grethel," quoth Hans. "Farewell, Hans," said she. Now Hans, simple in mind, thrust the little needle into a hay cart that chanced to pass by, and trotted after it homeward. When he came to his mother, the evening shadows falling, he said, "Good even, mother." "Good even, Hans. Where hast thou been?" "With Grethel," answered he. "What didst thou take her?" "I took her nothing, yet she gave me somewhat." "And what gift did Grethel bestow?" "She gave me a needle." "And where is this needle, Hans?" "In the hay cart I thrust it." "Ah, Hans, that was foolishly done," said his mother. "In thy sleeve thou shouldst have stuck it." "Never mind," said Hans. "Next time will I do better." Once more the mother said, "Whither away, Hans?" And Hans, as before, "To Grethel, mother." "See that thou behave well, Hans." "Oh, I shall behave well. Fare thee well, mother." "Fare thee well, Hans." Again Hans came to Grethel and greeted her. "A good day, Grethel." "A good day, Hans," said she. "What good thing dost thou bring?" "I bring nothing, but I would fain have something from thee." So Grethel placed in his hand a knife, keen and bright. "Farewell, Grethel," said Hans. "Farewell, Hans," said she. Hans, remembering his mother's word, thrust the knife into his sleeve and went homeward. "Good even, mother." "Good even, Hans. Where hast thou been?" "With Grethel." "What didst thou take her?" "Naught took I, yet something received." "And what gift gave Grethel?" "A knife, sharp and shining." "Where hast thou put it?" "In my sleeve, as thou badest me." "Ah, Hans, that was ill done. In thy pocket shouldst thou have laid it." "Never mind," quoth Hans. "Better shall I do next time." And the tale rolled onward, for Hans went again to Grethel, and once more brought nothing but desired a gift. This time Grethel gave him a young goat, lively and bleating. Hans, witless boy, tied its legs and thrust it into his pocket, so that when he reached home, the poor creature was stifled. His mother reproached him, saying, "Hans, Hans, that was clumsily done. A rope shouldst thou have cast about its neck." "Never mind," said Hans. "Better will I do anon." Yet again he went, and Grethel placed in his hand a piece of bacon, heavy and fat. Hans tied it to a rope and dragged it after him along the road. Dogs came sniffing, barking, biting, till naught remained save the rope. When his mother asked, "Where is the bacon, Hans?" he said, "The dogs have taken it." She cried, "Ah, foolish boy, upon thy head thou shouldst have borne it." Hans nodded. "Never mind. Next time I shall do better." And still again Hans went to Grethel, and this time she gave him a calf. Mindful of his mother's last counsel, Hans set the calf upon his head and trudged homeward. But the beast kicked and thrashed so that Hans's face was sorely bruised. His mother scolded, "That was badly done, Hans. Thou shouldst have led it gently by a rope and placed it in the stall." Hans said yet once more, "Never mind, mother. Better will I do next time." Once more he set forth, but this time, when Grethel saw his foolish ways, she said, "I will go with thee." Hans, knowing no better, tied her with a rope as if she were a beast, led her to the rack, and there bound her fast, scattering hay before her. Then went he to his mother. "Good even, mother. Good even, Hans. Where hast thou been? With Grethel. What tookest thou to her? Naught. And what gift did she give thee? None. She came with me herself. And where is Grethel now? Tied fast at the rack, and grass I strewed for her. Oh, Hans, Hans, that was ill done. Upon her shouldest thou have cast friendly eyes, not ropes and knots." Hans answered, "Never mind, I shall do better." But Grethel, angered and shamed, tore herself loose, her cheeks aflame, and in wrath she fled. Yet ere long the tale tells that she was appeased, and after many a turn and twist, she became the bride of Hans. For such is the strange fortune of foolish deeds and stubborn hearts. The Three Languages. Long ago, in the high valleys and shadowed peaks of Switzerland, there dwelt an aged count, a man of stern face and heavy heart, whose worldly wealth was great, but whose joy was small. For though he possessed broad lands, loyal servants, and lofty halls of stone, he had but one child to bear his name, and this son was a grief unto him. The boy grew tall and strong, yet his mind was slow and heavy, and nothing that the father or the tutors of the household endeavored could take root in him. At last, the count, wearied of vain attempts, spoke with sorrow to the youth. "Hear me, my son. However patiently I try, I can pour no wisdom into thy head. It is like a sieve through which water runs away. Therefore, I shall send thee far hence into the care of a master famed for his learning, and he shall see whether thy dullness may yet be broken." So the boy was taken to a strange town to live a year beneath the discipline of this celebrated teacher, and when the year was done, he returned home. His father looked upon him with anxious eyes and asked, "Now, my son, tell me, what hast thou learnt?" With simple pride, the youth answered, "Father, I have learnt the tongue of the dogs, and I know what they say when they bark." "Mercy upon us," cried the old man, striking his brow. "Hast thou squandered 12 months upon such folly? This is no learning fit for a noble son. thou shalt go again into another town, to another master, and heaven grant it be not wasted as before. Thus the boy departed once more, and another year slipped away. When he returned, the father asked with dwindling hope, "And now, what knowledge hast thou gathered?" The youth bowed his head modestly and replied, "I have learnt the speech of the birds that fly beneath the heavens." Then the Count's patience burst asunder, and he shouted, "O thou witless one, the time is precious, and thou usest it for trifles. Dost thou not blush to stand before mine eyes? Once more, and only once, will I give thee into another's care. But mark me well, if after this third trial thou bringest nothing but nonsense, I will cast thee off, and never again call thee son." So the youth was led away to a third master, and there he dwelt for yet another year. When he returned, the father, grim and weary, demanded, "What hast thou learnt at last?" And the youth, with quiet voice, said, "Dear father, I have learnt to understand what the frogs croak within the marshes." Then fury seized the old Count. His face grew dark as storm clouds, and he cried aloud, "Now my patience is ended. This foolish creature is no son of mine. Bring my men, take him into the forest, and strike off his life. Return to me with proof that he is gone." The servants obeyed and led the poor youth into the deep forest. Yet when the moment came, their hands faltered. Pity stirred in their hearts, for he looked upon them with such innocence that they could not harm him. Instead, they let him go free, and to deceive their master, they slew a deer and cut out its tongue and eyes to show as tokens. Thus, the boy wandered alone through wild country until he came to a fortress that rose stern against the sky. There he begged a night's lodging. The lord of the castle answered, "Yes, thou mayest abide, but only if thou wilt lie in the old tower. Yet beware, for it is filled with aged dogs that howl and snarl without ceasing. At set hours, a man must be given to them for prey, else they rage till heaven rings with their clamor. All this land mourns beneath their curse, and none can subdue them." But the youth, remembering his strange gift, said calmly, "Let me go down. Give me somewhat to cast before them, and they shall do me no harm." So they led him into the tower with meat for the beasts, and lo, the does neither barked nor bit, but wagged their tails like friends, and ate quietly from his hand. In the morning, he came forth alive, to the wonder of all. Then he told the Lord, "The dogs revealed to me their sorrow. They are under enchantment, bound to guard a treasure hidden in the earth below. Until the gold be brought forth, they shall have no rest. I know the way to free them." Great joy filled the castle, and the Lord said, "If thou bringest out the treasure, I will adopt thee as my own son." So the youth descended again, performed all that was needful, and bore up a chest heavy with shining gold. At once the howling ceased, the dogs vanished into silence, and the land was troubled no more. After a time, the young man set forth upon another journey, his heart drawn strangely toward Rome. On the road, he passed a wide marsh where many frogs croaked together. He listened and understood their speech, and their words made him grave and sorrowful, though he told no man. At length, he entered Rome itself, where the Pope had newly died. There was great strife among the cardinals, for they knew not whom to choose as successor. They resolved at last that heaven should show a sign, and that he upon whom the token fell should be made Pope. Even as this was spoken, the young count came into the church, and suddenly 2 doves as white as snow descended from above and alighted upon his shoulders. There they rested, still and unafraid. All the priests and bishops saw this wonder and cried, "Behold, the sign of God is here." They asked him if he would take the holy office. He hesitated, saying within himself that he was unworthy, for he had never learnt so much as a single prayer. Yet the gentle doves whispered in his ear and bade him consent. At last he yielded, and they anointed him with holy oil, and he was consecrated Pope. Then was fulfilled the prophecy he had once heard from the frogs, that he should wear the crown of the church. And when the time came for him to sing the Mass, he stood trembling, not knowing one word. But the doves bent to his ears and spoke softly, and he repeated after them, so that the service was sung more beautifully than ever before. And thus the son who had once been cast off as witless was exalted to the highest seat on earth by the hidden wisdom of beasts and birds, and by the secret counsel of heaven. Clever Elves. Once upon a time, there lived a man who had but one daughter, and her name was Clever Elta. She grew tall and fair, and when she reached the years in which a maiden is thought fit for marriage, her father spoke to his wife and said, "It is high time we found a husband for our girl." And the mother answered, "Yes, if only someone would be willing to take her as she is." Now after some waiting, there came a suitor from afar, a young man named Hans. He looked upon Clever Else with kind eyes, and he spoke plainly of his wish to have her for his bride. Yet Hans was not a man to give his word lightly, and he laid down one condition before her parents: "I will wed your daughter only if she proves herself not merely clever, but also careful in all things. The father, proud of his child, answered at once, "Brains she has in abundance." And the mother, eager to boast, added, "Why, she can spy the wind when it turns the corner of the street and hear a fly cough in the far room." "Well and good," said Hans. "But if she lacks carefulness, then I shall not bind myself to her." So they sat together at table. And when they had eaten well, the mother said to her daughter, "Else, fetch some beer from the cellar for our guest." Clever Elsa rose obediently, took a jug from the hook, and walked with it in her hand, rattling the lid up and down as though to amuse herself. Down the cellar steps she went, where she placed a small stool before the beer cask, so she need not stoop and weary her back. She set the jug beneath the tap and let the golden drink run. But while it filled, she cast her restless eyes about the cellar, lest they lie idle. And there she spied a pickaxe that the workmen had left stuck fast in a beam above her head. At this sight, Clever Else began to tremble, and soon she burst into tears, for she thought within herself, "If I should marry Hans, and if the good Lord grants us a child, and if that child should one day be grown enough to fetch beer from the cellar, then surely the pickaxe might fall upon his tender head and strike him dead. Ah, what misery that would be." And so she sat before the cask, the jug still under the tap, weeping bitterly for the misfortune that might one day be. Upstairs, the others wondered at the delay. "Why does she linger so long?" asked the mother. At last she sent the maid down to hasten her. The maid descended and found Clever Elsa crying as though her heart would break. "What troubles you, mistress?" she asked. "Alas, alas," sobbed Elsa, "if I wed Hans and bear a child, and when the child is grown, we send it here to fetch beer, that pickaxe may fall and kill it. Truly, our Else is clever indeed," said the maid. And she too sat down to weep for the sorrow to come. When they did not return, the master sent the boy. He too found them, lamenting. And when Elsa told her tale of the unborn child and the falling pickaxe, he shook his head and wailed, "Oh, clever indeed is our Else," and joined his tears to theirs. Then came the mistress, and later the master himself, and at last all five sat together in the cellar, bewailing the death of a child that had not yet been born, by a blow that had not yet fallen. Upstairs, Hans waited alone, thirsty and astonished. When none returned, he went down and beheld the weeping company. Else threw herself at him, crying, "Dearest Hans, if we marry and have a child, and when it is grown, we send it here to fetch beer, that pickaxe may fall and kill it." Hans looked long at her, and then he said, "Such foresight I have never seen in any maid. If you are so clever as to mourn the death of what is not, you are the wife for me." And he took her by the hand, led her upstairs, and they were wed that very day. Now, a little while after the wedding, Hans spoke to his bride. "Else," said he, "I must go out to labor, to earn us coin. Meanwhile, you go to the field and cut the corn, that we may have bread." "Gladly, dear Hans," said she. And she cooked herself a pot of savory stew, carried it into the field, and set it before her. But when she reached the field, she wondered, "Shall I eat first, or reap first?" She thought, "Better to eat, for work is hard on an empty belly." And she ate until she could eat no more. Then again she mused, "Shall I reap first, or sleep first?" And she thought, "Better to sleep, for reaping is heavy work when one is weary." So she lay down among the corn and fell fast asleep. Hans returned home in the evening and waited, but Elsa did not come. "My wife is so diligent," he said to himself, "that she forgets even to eat." Yet when night drew on and she still came not, he went to the field. There she lay in the corn, fast asleep, and not a single stalk was cut. Hans fetched a net strung with little bells and spread it over her as she slumbered. The bells jingled softly, but Elsa stirred not. Hans went home, locked his door, and sat quietly at his bench. When darkness fell, clever Else awoke. She rose, and as she moved, the bells rang at each step. Greatly afraid, she said to herself, "Am I clever Else, or am I some other?" And she could not tell. At last she resolved, "I will go home and ask Hans. He will surely know." She ran to her own door, but it was locked. She knocked and cried, "Hans, is Elsa within?" And Hans, who sat inside, answered, "Yes, she is here." At this, Elsa was struck with dread, and she cried, "Oh dear, then I am not I." She fled from the house, knocking at the windows of neighbors, but none would open to a woman who came in the dark with bells ringing about her. So she ran out beyond the village, into the night, and from that hour to this, clever Else has never been seen again.